I'm going to talk about shims on the neck fingerboard extension when doing a neck reset. And let me show you what that is. This is the extension right here. Some people put a shim on this. And here's the quick and dirty Cliff Notes answer. I don't like shims because they put pressure on the body right here. Okay? So if you don't want to hear me talk anymore, you can just get out of here. I don't like shims because they put pressure on the upper back. Okay, bye-bye. Now, here's what we're talking about if you don't have any idea. Here's your fingerboard extension. Normally, the neck is on the body at about a 2-degree angle. So I'm going to use this yardstick here as an example. So you can see it on here. This is the neck flush to the body, you see? It's coming down here. But in order to clear the bridge and the saddle, you have to tilt the neck back like this. And when you do that, this extension here creates a gap right here. Normally, you would just go ahead, and this is exaggerated, it's only about a 2 degrees. Normally, you would just take this and you would clamp that down like that, and you would bend the extension down to it. This results in exactly what you see here, the plane of the neck coming up like this, and then the fingerboard extension doing this. So it goes like this. People mistakenly call that a hump. It's not a hump, it's a drop off. Okay, so it's a natural part of the angle of the neck, and that's the way it is. Some people don't like that because they want to see a straight line down that fingerboard, and for maybe they take their D18 or D28 and they play up here that, you know? I can't imagine that. I mean, I can imagine that. But you're losing all these notes in between here too. So you really ought to have a fingerboard that runs from here clear up to the bridge so you can just get all of your notes, you know? Okay, anyway. So I don't play D28 or D18 up there past about the 15th, maybe the 16th fret once in a while, and that's just the way it is. But some people like to see a straight line up there. They don't like to see that drop off. The problem is that when you put a shim under here to take care of that drop off, then you end up with a thicker fingerboard. So I see the fingerboard thickness going down here, and then all of a sudden it gets fat right here where the shim is. So which one do you want to look at? Do you want to look at the fatter fingerboard? And especially if you have a bound fingerboard, like a D35 or a D41 or 42 or something like that, something with binding on there, and then you're going to put a shim under there, it just disrupts the whole visual plane. So you have a choice here between having a straight fingerboard, putting a shim underneath it, or you have a choice of then seeing a fatter fingerboard down at the end. And believe me, when you have done multiple resets and maybe the body's caving in a little bit right here, man, you can have a fat shim. This one's not too bad. This D18 I have over here also has a shim, and the reason I'm doing this video is because I actually have only 2 guitars in the shop. You know, I'm really cutting back here. This is a warranty repair, and the other one is one that I was already working on when I decided to take a break, so I have to do these 2. Both of them have shims on the fingerboard, which is unusual. I don't put shims on the fingerboard because I don't like that visual aspect of that fatter fingerboard. I'm used to seeing the drop off. That just tells me, it gives me an idea of how far back that neck is, and it's just a piece of information I like to have. But the second reason, the more important reason, the structural reason, is that when this neck is on here like this, if there's not a gap right here, and if you don't have to push that fingerboard down, then over time, as this neck changes, it starts to put pressure down here on this thing. So you can see that there's no gap right here. And as this neck comes up, the fingerboard is going to put pressure down on the upper back. And sure enough, guess what? This guitar's got cracks right here. Whether that pressure caused those cracks or not, I don't know. But I don't like to put that pressure down on the upper back right there. So I don't structurally like to have shims. I would rather take it and glue that extension down there so that its natural indication is to pop up and not put pressure on it. And as the neck angle changes, it has some room to flex, you see. So here it is like this, and as that neck angle changes, as the body geometry changes, you've got some room for that extension, rather than if you start here by putting a shim, and that comes up, see, it's putting a lot of pressure on there. So that's why I don't like extensions. I rarely do them. I'm going to leave this one in because I am taking this neck and I'm angling it back more. Like I said, it needs its third neck reset. And, you know, for all I know, maybe that Shim is giving a false reading or something. I can't find anything wrong with this guitar other than this really weird hump right here in the back, which I have never seen before, and I can feel it right here. It's a hump. It goes like this. I'm going to exaggerate. It's going like this, and then boom, like this. A really abrupt hump. It's not a bowing of the back like this, a smooth. It's going like this and going bump right there, and it's right in between the two back braces right here. So it's not a loose brace. It's nothing like that. I am not sure what's causing that, but I'm trying to think how that would affect the geometry. If it causes a hump right there, it should shorten the back. But if the guitar is actually compressing like this and collapsing down this way, then yeah, it could be causing a hump here. So in other words, if the guitar is like this and compressing, see, it would cause a hump. And that could cause the neck angle to change. See what I'm doing right here? I'm taking this neck angle here and I'm compressing and bending it like this. And the geometry of all this is changing, causing a hump. So, I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm going to do the neck reset again, and you know, hopefully the thing will stabilize. That's a weird thing. Yep. I'm not saying that the extension is doing anything, but the neck could possibly be sitting on that extension and giving a false reading that over time the thing starts collapsing, you see. So all that kind of makes me suspicious. Now over here I have a D18. Let me grab it. I have a D18 that I have not reset. This is the first reset, but somebody else has reset it. And unfortunately, they gave it too much neck angle, so that when I changed the bridge from the super fat bridge that it had down to a vintage spec bridge, now the neck is overset, and the saddle that was on it was super tall, 200 thousandths of an inch, and it ought to be about like 140. It's just too tall. There's no way I could work with it. So I took the neck off, and I'm going to do a reverse neck reset where I pull the neck up like this in order to increase the action and therefore lower the saddle. When I do that, then it's going to do the opposite of this neck, which is coming backwards. So you see, here's your body, and this neck is coming backwards, which is going to increase the gap. But this one's going the opposite way. This one is going to need to come up, and that's going to put more and more pressure on this, and it's going to make the shim, which is pretty good shim. I mean, it's hard to see. I left it soaking in water overnight to loosen the glue up. But you can see maybe the slight difference in color of wood right here. And this is a good shim, you know. Whoever did this did a really good job of matching it up, but it's got to come off. John Barleycorn must die. The shim's got to come off because I don't want to go putting even more pressure on this, you see. So that's coming off, and then I'm going to unset this neck, which is tricky. There's two ways you can do that. I have a whole video on this, but really quick, since you're wondering how do you do that. You can either run a shim in here to a very, it only needs to do 10 thousandths of an inch. It's not a big deal. You can run a shims in here to bring the neck up, or you can very carefully come in and take just a little bit of material off up at the top, which will let it come up, and then you have to refit the whole entire neck. I'm probably going to use a shim on this because this angle is really good, and I don't want to mess with that. And if I take material off of here, it's going to shorten the scale just a tiny bit. If I put shims up under here, it's not going to hurt anything. Those shims can be taken off, they can be sanded out, they can do everything, you know, there's no damage done. And because this has a mahogany end cap, or a rosewood end cap, it'll be really easy to match the color of that all the way. when you have a D28 or D35 and you have mahogany here and a white end cap like this one, and your shim is going to have to fill that gap with white, and it's a little more obvious. This one's going to be almost invisible when I get done, and the owner's probably not even going to notice if I wouldn't have talked about it right here. So I'll put a shim in here and I'll stain it, and that will kick the neck up this way, and then I will fit the shims. And so that's probably what I'm going to do. But I am going to take this shim off on the extension. That's the reason why. So I don't have a video on extensions, shims on the extension, and I've meant to do one, and I just never have them around here, and here I happen to have 2 of them. So I thought I would just talk about that as to why I don't necessarily immediately jump to putting a shim on that. I've had some luthiers say, oh, I always put one in there because that's, well, great. I almost never do. The only time I will is if the customer requests it. And then I go through the pros and cons of all this, and I say, you're trading off a flat fingerboard surface for a tapered surface this way. And you can see it. Maybe you can see it on the camera. You can see it getting fat right here. And like I said before, this is not a bad shim. This is a minimal shim. I've seen some that are just, wedges. So I generally don't do them unless the customer requests it, or unless that's a really, really bad drop-off for some reason or other. And if that's the case, I kind of want to fix the issue for the drop-off and not, maybe the body is sunk right here. Maybe we need to adjust that. Maybe the fingerboard has been thinned down at some time, which sometimes happens. Then I'll put one in there to match it. But I generally do not use shims. But in this case, we have 2 of them, so I thought I would address this. Okay, back to work.